So welcome everyone. Happy New Year. Good to see so many of you. Hopefully you're all are safe and taking care of yourselves and our families. So great to see you all. Tonight's meeting is as a recap. You all received copies of the survey results from each of the survey, from the survey that was sent out during the winter break. And to the purpose of tonight's meeting is to talk a little bit about the survey. We have some summary information, but you all have hopefully had a chance to take a look at it. And then we'll talk about some of the next steps and really what the time is like in terms of allowing you all time to talk more with some of the groups that you work with, certainly the parents and other teachers. I know that we've got some teachers online here as well, but we also want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to share the data, talk with other folks, and then we'll convene again in a couple of weeks, and all in preparation for bringing a recommendation to the board in February. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. And I can't see, so I'm gonna let if there's any questions or anything to stop me, please say something. To begin with, as I said, you all have copies of the survey results, and I want you all to also be able to share that. We'll attach it and post it as well, but it is attached to our meeting invite for today. So the summary of results for the MIP, 223 parents took the survey. 58 parents out of the Blake Howe site and 165 from Azaveda. 55% said to keep the program at the current locations, not hoping to do a full unification, but to keep it at the two locations. 45% said to unify. And then for consideration, they said, I think for us to think about is certainly that we know that this is a high demand program, and our district and the families want the program to grow. So the idea of we need to have that in the back of our minds, that really this is why we're here, to try to find a location that's suitable for the full program, or a place for the program to continue to grow. And then also, one of the questions spoke to if the board did approve unification. And if the unification took place at Blake House, 62% said they would stay in the program. And if the board approved Lila Bringhurst for it, 43% of those 223 parents say they would stay in the program. And then you all know the survey results have some more details, but I wanted to just show this summary. Moving on to the Spanish dual immersion, 163 parents took the survey, 48 from Vallejo Mill, 61 from Grimmer, and 54 from Blake Howe. Of those surveyed, parents said that 59% of those 163 parents said they would like to keep the program at the current locations, the 3 locations with no unification. And 41% of the 163 said that they wish for the program to unify to one location. Then we posed, if the board were to approve unification, apologize for that. If the board were to approve unification at Blake Howe, 59% said that they would stay in the program. If we approved it for Grimmer, if the board approved it for Grimmer, 50% would stay in the program. And if it was approved for Lila Bringhurst as a location, 37% would stay in the program. We also thought, you have very specific information about staff. And so this is a summary of the Mandarin Immersion Program educators that took the survey of the 18. The information shows how 56% of the educators want to unify, and 44% said to keep it as is. If the board were to approve unification at Blake Howe, the data showed us that of those 18 educators who are our teachers, 23% said yes, 46% said not sure, 31% said no. And if it were to be approved for Lila Bringhurst, 23% said yes, 38% said not sure, and 38% said no. So as you can see, with the not sures, there's some information that really needs to, I think it's going to be really important for our teachers. And I think Ms. Dorsey is going to join us tonight to really start to kind of look at that. As we look at for the SDI educators, 67% of the educators who took the survey do want to unify. 33% it said to keep it as is. If the board were to approve unification at Blake Howe, 36% said yes, 29% said not sure, 36% said no. For Grimmer, if it were approved for Grimmer for the unification, 21% said yes, 43 not sure, 36 no. And for Lila Bringhurst, 21% said yes, 36% said not sure, 43% said no. So again, we do see some not sures there, but we also do, if you look at the first set of data about whether or not to unify, we do see a majority there for that part. And so to conclude, and then we'll have some discussion, the next steps are that after today, between January 12th through the 24th, this is going to be an opportunity for you all to use this as another data point. I know you all take part in meetings, you're parts of school site councils or your ELAC, or certainly our MIP group of parents. This is another set of data points. And so we want you to be able to have the discussion with folks and to take a look at this. After that, we're going to have another meeting. Our last task force meeting will be on January 25th, and that's going to be an opportunity for us all to have some more discussion and hopefully come to a consensus. Oh, I apologize. Hopefully come to a consensus so that we can have a recommendation to the Board of Education. And then that looks towards the February Board of Education meeting as we bring the recommendation for action for our board. I hope to have the actual date of there's 2 board meetings in February, but we have not yet done agenda review. And so we start to see what items are on the agenda. So by the 25th, I will have that information. So I'm going to stop sharing, go back. And I think this will be a time, and Dr. Rocha, did I leave any information out or any points to speak to?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so let's see, any questions or clarifying points or anything else from the group? Brian Lee?
Hi, if you look at the survey results, Blake House seemed to be the preferred site for both SDI and MIP in terms of unification site. What would happen to the MIP the 2 strands of MIP that are currently at Blake House right now if SDI is unified at Blake House and Bringhurst is not open?
So is your question, and I apologize, is the question if we were to go ahead and do unification for both? I'm sorry.
No, if you unify SDI at Blake House and Bringhurst, let's say it's not open for this year, what will happen to the 2 MIP strands that are currently at Blake House?
So let's, we want to take this one step at a time. So for you all to know, this week we have an agenda item for our board to consider the opening of Lila Bringhurst. So we were purposeful with that. So we will know more information this week as to whether or not the board approves that. And then we'll be able to bring that information to our task force discussion on the 25th. So in the event that it is not open, then we would certainly all have a discussion again and start to look at the data. And that would be another point of information that I would bring forward. If the board does approve it, that action would take place this week, and we'll have that information as well. Are there other questions or comments? Oh, did you want to say?
How do you guys feel about the survey results?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think I treat it as another point of information. I think it'll be important to hear from all of you once you get more feedback from folks. But that, I mean, I'll say that, and I don't know if any of the other administrators want to speak to it, or anyone else really. Just from your first blush, we haven't really looked at it. all, you guys all just got it. When did I attach it? Last night. And so you all needed time to also look at it. But would anybody else like to comment? Judy and I?
Just very briefly, I would like to have further discussions about how a unification would strengthen the program. I'm thinking that it's possible that some parents don't understand, and I would like to have a discussion with more teachers about that topic.
Okay, and this would be also because we're live streaming. If there's anything that anyone would like to say in that respect, I think that'll be important as well, because then you all can take this information back. But just knowing that we're almost, to the next meeting. So, but I hear that. Judy, did you want to say anything in respect to that? And then I'll call on.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for Grimmer because I haven't been at Blackout or Below Mill, but we have strong professional learning communities at Grimmer, and it has enhanced the instruction tremendously at our site in the ability to collaborate. And we've been very fortunate to continue our PLCs because we have some site funds that I'm able to use to do that. On another point, and Christy and I talked about this earlier today, there was a potential that I had a long-term absence for one of my Spanish speaking teachers, and there's no one to go to support the students in that classroom. And there are very few substitutes to begin with, but there are very few Spanish, if any, Spanish speaking substitutes, or I would imagine Mandarin speaking substitutes. So if we were unified, that alone would strengthen the program because they could support one another at the grade level. So there are many things like that that possibly, the parent community doesn't really have a sense of because they're not in it on a daily basis. But the instructional quality, no doubt, I'll speak for myself from my observations at Grimmer, would improve tremendously in both programs if they were unified, in my opinion.
Thank you. And I see Patricia Camacho had her hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I just a quick comment to tie to Judy. I mean, everyone sees the benefit of unification in terms of instruction and collaboration. I mean, that's probably one of the main reasons why, both from the educators and the parents, not having digested like all of the survey responses thoroughly. One of the ongoing conversations that has been going on among a few parents is the understanding of what would happen if I leave the program and where would I go, because whether there is room for them to continue at the school that they're currently in, or would they be displaced to another location, because that in and of itself, leaving the program doesn't guarantee you a spot. So I know that that's going to be a conversation that would come out of this. It kind of just resonates with those wishing to opt out for various reasons, mainly because, the school's within walking distance or is convenient. Or, if it's not here, I don't want to go anywhere else kind of thing. So I know that that's is going to be a huge discussion point, making sure that the parents understand that leaving the program doesn't mean that you get to remain at that school. And leave the program and going into like all English, let's say.
I can speak to that because we had that scenario when we were anticipating to go to Melendez. So just to clarify for the community that depending on if it is the student's home school, we would make accommodations and try to keep them at their school. The tricky part becomes that if they're on a transfer and that, say, their home school is Parkmont, let's just take Vallejo Mill, for example, right? And that their home school is Parkmont and Vallejo Mill, they're there as a transfer. They will, I know Student Support Services will try to accommodate, but it's not a guarantee. that they would stay at Vallejo Mill. It would all be pending on space. But the neighborhood students, again, they would be first priority to have those spaces.
So, so priority for placement at the home school if that specific school is your home school, or then your neighborhood school, right? Because I know we have quite one of the data points that we have here that we don't have here is we do have students that come from Union City, Hayward, all those. So we don't have that in terms of how many of those, if they responded to the survey, how many of them were there. So
Yes, and like I said, student support services will accommodate. So if there's I always get these two terms, inter-district transfer, they're Fremont students regardless. It just might not be the school that they were designated. So we would accommodate that.
okay, thank you.
And Christy, the same will be true for MIP as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Patricia. That's very helpful. For that good question. Kelly Lynch McMahon.
Actually, Christy answered my question for clarification, which was the impact of homeschool versus neighborhood school versus out of district transfer versus inter-district transfer. So that was answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or clarifications or something that we would like, as the parent community is looking at this live stream or the video later on, that I think will be important for them to hear? I think what I can add is that, part of trying to get this also, getting trying to settle, and trying to get this work moving forward, whichever way we make a recommendation to the board, is that in February, we will have to work very quickly because certainly there will be impact. Even with status quo, there may be impact. We don't know yet, but we know that in terms of human resources for our staff, and we want to make sure that all of that kind of falls in line. And then families who then may need to apply for a transfer or not, that they have the opportunity to do that. So I know that Mr. Greg Bailey in Student Support Services has been keeping an eye on this, and so he's very much aware, as is Human Resources, as it relates to our teachers. Melissa Avery.
I'm sorry, my children's sports practice is still very long right now, so I jumped in a little bit late, but is the process still on track for this upcoming school year?
Yes, so the timeline, our next steps will be to after today through January 24th. You'll have the opportunity to take the survey data as another data point, speak to constituents, other parents, other teachers, other administrators, your stakeholder groups, and then be able to start to garner more input. And then at the next meeting on the 25th, we will have more discussion. We'll know then about the board action on Lila Bringhurst additionally, and then we would come to a consensus at that meeting. Hopefully by that meeting, I more than likely will have the actual board date in February where we will take the recommendation for board action. There's 2 board meetings in February, but I need to bring this forward so that then agenda review can go ahead and put it in the queue.
Okay, just, the consensus I'm getting from a lot of just parents that I've been speaking to has still just been like logistically, like if it were to leave Blake Howe, because I'm at Blake Howe, like, that's just what I'm hearing right now. It's from parents, is like logistically, if it were to leave Blake Howe, then it would be, difficult. But I'm trying to get more people to take the survey as much as they can. But yeah, that's the logistics of it, of the physical location of the school is still a very high priority to a lot of people.
Yeah, and once you look at the data, and the survey is closed, so for clarity, the survey is closed, but when you look at the details of the survey, there were questions about like, why would you leave the program? And that's where you're able to see, because it's too far or what have you. So there is some more specifics there. So Christy and then Brian.
Yeah. So, Brian, I just wanted to speak to your point about as what, one data point that we've heard is that, or from the survey, right, of the parents that have taken it, that seems to be the desire is Blake Cal for both programs. And so currently, Blake Cal has 15 classrooms that are needed for their English only or neighborhood students. Plus, they do have an special ed program. So that's a total of 15. So, to your question, what would happen if Spanish Immersion Unified and the existing MIP expanded strand, essentially, we would not have the capability or the capacity facility wise. So just to clarify that to that. So unfortunately, Blake Cal would not be able to house both programs plus the existing neighborhood students.
Yep. Thank you, Christy. And that's my thought as well. And so that's why I raised the point, because I want to, I want everyone to start thinking about alternative. That's the direction we're going to. And can you guys, can the staff describe the sort of the factors that are driving your recommendation to the board? What factors do you think is important to you or are important to you? And are there like some priority that you want to address more than other? Can I just have? I mean, I sort of want to understand the thinking from the staff perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, and then Christy, if you want to chime in, and if any of our principals want to also chime in. I think one of the biggest priorities for us, and I don't want to speak for our board, but is that we sustain and allow a program that is so rich and important for our district to grow. And so with that said, we have to do that in a facility that's going to be able to sustain the growth. So that's one. I think the second priority, we heard it from Judy and I, and we've heard it from our principals, is really the quality of a program. And I'm not speaking to whether a program's good or bad. It's more about the experience that you can have when the program is the pluses for unification, right? Now, many districts have programs that are not fully unified. That's true. But they also, some of these districts also have pretty full strands, a complete strands. And that is in something in the Spanish immersion program that we have not yet seen. We definitely see it in the MIP. So I think that's going to be an area of growth for our Spanish immersion program that we are fully behind trying to grow. And so one of the strategies that I think we heard, and remember, I'm not new anymore, but I know the thinking behind the Melendez site was to unify all programs so that we can really grow it that way. So I don't know, Christy, and then some of our principals want to speak to it as well.
The other thing I would say is just the funneling of resources. When you're trying to, at 2 sites, 3 sites, and there's the need for, say, supplemental, instructional materials, or, whatever the case might be, and they're kind of stretched among, and, those kinds of things. I think the biggest thing, and what we saw from our educator, that we saw from our educators, is there is the desire to unify. And I think for me, the biggest thing is the instructional program. And I know Judy's talked about that. And so I won't, belabor the point, but the need for collaboration, I think, is just ultimately super important. I know the Mandarin immersion teachers do communicate, but it's via, telephone or email or things like that. And it's just so much nicer that you can just walk down the hall or, go next door versus trying to do these communication on WeChat or, whatever. And I know we have Zoom and we have all these, enhancements with technology, but there's something to be said that you can just go down the hallway and, have common preps, when all the first grade Mandarin immersion or all the first grade Spanish immersion. So not only do you have time that your close proximity, but it's within the school day. And so you can really do that enhancement. What I think is really important too, the cultural piece of how we can really enhance the cultural experience for our students who are learning in the immersion programs. For me, I just see the added bonus and enhancement around the instructional program. So that's where my lens is, and really strengthening as an educator, being able to have that close proximity to your colleagues to really think about the instruction and supporting students in the both languages. So that's my kind of priority.
And I know I've already spoken, but just one thing that comes to mind real quickly is to making sure that the children all have the same quality experience, because different staffs collaborate differently and they might be getting a different experience, and we want them all to have benefit of the richest experience possible.
And at Azaveda this year, with our first year of having 4 of our classrooms over at Blakehow, we are feeling those growing pains. And I know we have a couple teachers here, on this call, and they could probably also explain that. It is difficult for my 2 first grade Mandarin immersion teachers, who are amazing, to be able to work hand in hand with the 2 new first grade Mandarin immersion teachers at Blakehow. It's almost an unfair disadvantage to our Blakehow teachers, because they are not able to sit at lunch and chat about strategies and materials and curriculum. I mean, Christy and I had a whole month of organizing curriculum and making sure that everybody understood what was what, because the Blakehow teachers are new and they didn't have their neighbors to explain what they were receiving. So I just really feel like we feel the growing pains of not being unified for the first time ever at Azaveda. And also, we all want the program to grow. We are constantly being asked from parents who are moving into Fremont, can I get in? Can I get in? And after explaining the process of getting in, we know just by phone calls that we have so many families who want to join us. So we want it to grow, get bigger, get better.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for that question. Okay, Patricia Camacho.
So in the meantime, between now and our next meeting, if we wanted to submit scenarios for discussion and conversations, we will be doing it among the email group. I'm just just briefly looking at scenario, for example, just in thinking about growth, and given that a lot of these responses aren't necessarily like weighted averages of anything, we have a 44% response for SDI, yet only half of that, or even a third of that, answer what would happen if I leave the program, and we would lose half, literally half of another strand. So we were already thinking about 2 strands going in fully, but now we only have like 1.5 kind of thing. 1.5 strands. So those are the kind of scenarios that I'm starting to play in my head with these percentages and response that were given out. And I guess and I know a lot of the parents are probably going to be doing the same. So I wanted to kind of see what would be the best outlet to kind of share those scenarios. I think we got to be mindful of those scenarios and as we consider, unification and growth, and whether it's ideal at this time. Because for a lot of parents, if I'm being honest, it was just kind of like the long-term vision for SDI. And then all of a sudden, this quick jump in again in terms of unifying the program, without really discussing much of what happened since last year. And then with the response, I'm kind of sensing that in the responses and the different scenarios that are playing out for each of the potential sites.
Okay. Okay. Larry Sweeney.
Thank you. I have piggyback on Patricia's comments. One of the things we're seeing from the survey is no clear direction
Mhm.
from any of the groups of exactly what they would want.
Yep.
We have to weigh that to how many people would really leave. And if they left, how could we sustain a program X? So
Exactly.
I think we still have some work to do to try and figure out what our next steps are,
Mhm.
because the survey has shown that we're divided. I think there's a million reasons why each program has the reasons they do, and logistics probably has a great deal to do with it.
Yeah.
So from the educator standpoint, yes, if any program was unified, it would be a better, richer, more robust program. The question is, if we do make a move based on this data that doesn't really show an overwhelming majority for any of the choices, how many people will we lose? And then how robust is the program?
Correct.
So I think we got some tough decisions ahead of us.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask all of you then to, in forums, at your school site councils, at your parent meetings, to just try to elicit some more input. Because remember, this is just one set of data points. And you all are representative as well of other folks behind you, right, that you're representing. So I think that's going to be key as well. And I think we go from there. Okay, so I'm gonna, Christy, was there any other point that I missed or anything else?
Not that I can recall at the moment.
And please, like I said, this video can be shown and shared. And then we also, if there's questions that come up as it relates to student support services, we can certainly get some information out to all of you, because that might be one of the biggest questions that's out there. Even though we kind of shared or summarized, if parents are asking you, we can certainly get that process. In fact, we can do that. We can send out the process to all of you as to like what steps would be taken if for intra-district or inter-district transfers as well.
And to your point, Patricia, starting to kind of draft scenarios would be helpful if we, once you kind of have some, to give it to us so that we can then, work with the different departments, because there's an overlap, right? It's
Okay.
not just one department. So that
Correct.
if it's something with student support services, then I have time to get you, the answers. So that would be really helpful.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
And we'll be sure to share it with everyone so you all have the same information as well. Okay, so if there are no other questions, definitely share this video, but then also we're on this email group and we will move forward with that. So thank you, everyone. And then we'll attach this little slide deck of a few slides. We'll attach it also to the agenda so you have
Yeah.
that as well, because it's got the next steps on there. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a very good evening, and we will see you soon.
Okay. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.